This is a production of Cornell University.
Well, we collectively have put together a presentation. We felt that it was a worthy topic to talk about distance education in the department because it exists in some pockets among a number of us, but hasn't really been elevated to a department-wide conversation. It also seems as if it sort of can fall through the cracks a little bit between teaching and extension. And what our hope is that today we'll each be presenting what we do, which, you know, for each of us is a little bit different. Try to keep it to just, 5 to 7 minutes a piece, and then open it up for discussion. I see that we don't have a lot of faculty with us here today. We have some of us, but we have a lot of students, and maybe we can capture both perspectives in terms of what questions you might have as faculty members about where you might go with this. As students, do you see a need that isn't being met that could be met through a distance education course and that sort of thing? Anything else you want to add before I jump in?
Jump right in.
Okay, so I'll jump right in. My name is Marcia Eames-Sheavly. I teach several courses in the department and also am one of the co-program leaders for Cornell Garden-Based Learning. And I teach a number of courses, distance courses, through the Moodle interface. Moodle is an online distance learning software that I actually really like. I'm not technologically savvy, nor am I phobic. I think I sit somewhere in the middle, and I found it to be really nice to work with. I initially began with some Botanical Illustration courses because I saw an opportunity and wondered if online learning might be even better, because in learning illustration at home step by step, maybe people wouldn't be as self-conscious as they often are in the classroom, and in fact that's been the case. It's been really successful. Or in my view, I've really enjoyed doing it, maybe I should say, and the students seem to respond to it. And since then, I've developed these first two courses working on, this should say Botanical Illustration 3, Advanced Techniques. We've completed that this summer and we're pilot testing it. An Introduction to Garden Design course. A Foundations of Global Garden-Based Learning course I wasn't all that happy with, and I still have it, but from that, one of our county educators modified it to become Teaching and Learning in the School Garden, and she teaches it now. Primarily this has been a New York State audience, but we're launching it nationally this fall. And these courses have had students from all over the world: Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, literally an international audience. All the classes that I teach offer what I think of as these essential elements: reading and resources, exercises and assignments to scan and upload with individualized feedback about their progress, a student forum to engage with others, and then considerable reflective writing so that they can process what they're learning, how they're learning it, and any barriers to that learning that may be taking place. This is just a snapshot of the Working with Watercolor course, just to give you a visual image of what the Moodle interface looks like. You can see that these buttons over here are things that they can click on. This little square is an interactive. They practice scanning and uploading an assignment their first week. Many of my students have never taken a distance learning course, and they say it's almost like 2-in-1. They're learning the content, and they're also learning how to learn at a distance. Here's a snapshot from the Teaching and Learning in the School Garden course. Looks a little bit different visually, but it's the same general idea. You can see they're submitting a portfolio project here and doing a lot of program planning, a lot of engagement with others along the way. So some consistent themes that I've seen before I close my portion of this seminar is a continued among students amazement at the ability to form a genuine community at a distance. I was surprised that you could really do that. I mean, I was a little skeptical. I was convinced that there was worth in teaching coursework, but I didn't know if you could really get to know people. And it's amazing the degree to which you can form a community. Somehow you managed to connect with me and my classmates despite the distance and hardware. Turned a computer experience into a classroom experience. As intimate and as personal as a classroom with walls. And this was an educator who taught for 35 years, and she was delightfully surprised as well. So that's a consistent theme. In the Botanical Illustration courses, I would say a consistent theme is it's not about drawing, it's learning to observe the plant world. People are learning as much about the plants as they are learning to draw them. This learning to see notion comes up again and again. From this, I learned to look at everything in a new and more focused light. To slow down, and slowing down helps with my sense of direction and proportions. So that is something I hear from, I would say, of the vast majority of students. And this student happened to include a lovely quote that I wasn't familiar with and thought summarized very well their learning in this manner. And I feel as if I ought to do a truth in advertising thing here. They also learn to draw in the Botanical Illustration courses. It's amazing that they can do that in 6 short weeks, that they can go from not really knowing how to producing some pretty stellar work. My son actually asked me when I was talking about this, yeah, but let me see a before shot. So I felt you might want to too. Here's a little leaf drawing here in the upper corner, just 3 ginkgo leaves, and this person produced this in the 5th week of the course. So you progress in a very specific way. You do it every day, and just like learning to play the piano, you do in fact move along. Here's somebody this summer at the end of the watercolor course, and I'll tell you, I will admit, I feel as if she surpassed me in her skill. And then lastly, the experience, I feel as if it's worth talking about the opportunity here for engaging students as TAs. For the first time this past spring in teaching the Intro to Garden Design class, I worked with a landscape architecture graduate student who co-taught along with me, and just sent this a couple weeks ago, about 3 or 4 weeks ago after returning from an internship. He felt like that experience was the thing that got him his job over the summer. They saw that teaching on his resume and felt that he was the superior candidate. So I think there's a huge opportunity for engaging students in this process too.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Frenay, and I work for the Cornell Small Farms program based here in the Hort department. Hopefully you all have heard of us, and you're all welcome to stop by anytime. We're down in the basement in 15A and 15B. And my part of the Small Farms program is that I co-manage the Northeast Beginning Farmer Project, which we began in 2006, I think it was, because we were hearing from a lot of our partners in county extension offices that they were getting contacted by people interested in starting a farm, and a lot of the offices didn't feel that they had good resources to send to these people. And pretty quickly as we got into, we assembled a leadership team of extension educators to work with us and determine what we could do as a team through the Small Farms program to try to meet some of the need and provide information to people wanting to get started in farming. And it pretty quickly emerged that having an online course might be a good thing to try out. We knew that there were already people like Ken and Marguerite and Marcia and Lori doing this kind of work in the department, so we knew the infrastructure was there. Our target audience is scattered all over the place geographically. They tend to be people who have other jobs, you know, a mortgage, kids, a house, stuff like that, so they can't necessarily learn about farming in some of the time-tested ways, like going and working on someone's farm full-time for a summer or something like that. They tend to be people who are looking online for resources, so they're relatively internet savvy. And these are generally not people who want to just garden or homestead. We're looking at people who are wanting to start a commercial business farming. So we thought it seemed like a good thing to try out. We also observed that these are people who can Google their way to piles of information. I mean, it wasn't actually information that there was a shortage of. It was more like guidance in how to use all of that information, how to put together a farm plan and things like that. And we decided that if we were going to try out these online courses, we wanted to be able to do it as something that didn't require constant grant input in order to make it work. So we've been attempting to run them in a way that they are self-funding basically over time. And we also have learned that it's really important that we incorporate, we can't just have extension folks teaching the courses, that we need to incorporate the voices of successful farmers into courses. So in 2007, we tried out our very first course, and we just called it BF 101, Beginning Farming 101. And to put together the curriculum for it, we looked at a whole bunch of curricula that had been used for classroom-based introductions to farming, and they all tended to cover similar things: some goal setting, assessing your resources, looking at the feasibility of your ideas from a market perspective and profitability. And so we trialed one course that was 9 weeks long, and it was so popular. I mean, I think we just sent out one single press release about it, and we could have filled the course 2 or 3 times over just from that one press release. And we sent it primarily to an audience. Our contacts list is primarily New York based, and it got forwarded all over the country, and we were getting contacts from Canada and all over. And we thought, okay, well, it seems like maybe we've hit a nerve here. Maybe this is something that we could, keep building on. And so now, 4 years later, we're up to 13 courses, which is feeling, to be honest, a little overwhelming at the moment. We're running 7 simultaneously for the first time beginning this fall. I don't do much of the teaching. I am co-teaching one this fall on business planning, but for the most part, we have a core team of extension educators who have recruited and trained, with help from Paul Treadwell, a group of instructors. And generally we have 2 people instructing each course so that they can share the responsibility and that the people in the course have the benefit of 2 different perspectives. And our courses, we now have planning things like BF 101 is still there. We've renamed it. It's called Square One now. And that's our most basic overview type course for people who are really just at the exploring and aspiring stage, and then all the way up to a planning course that helps people write their business plan. And then in the last year or so, we've launched some production-based courses on poultry farming, veggie farming, soil health, things like that, more on the how-to side. So I mentioned that we have a core team of extension educators and me, and we're sort of the team that maintains the vision for all of the courses and recruits the new instructors and deals with training and consistency of quality of what we offer. We now have farmers teaching some of our courses. They're generally paired with a cooperative extension educator when they teach, but the participants really strongly respond with positive feedback that they love hearing from farmers. And so even when we don't have a farmer who's teaching the whole course, we use webinars to bring in farmer voices, and we'll bring in webinars for each of the courses and have farmers talk about their operations. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. So I kind of deal with the overall logistics of the scheduling and communicating with all the instructors, and we charge $175 per course, and they're about 6 weeks. We are trying to balance, I mean, I think that's a pretty good value. People get a lot for that amount of money. It'd be nice, some of the other online courses in the department charge more, but we didn't want to price people who are, people who are in our audience, we didn't want to price them out. So we are looking at the possibility of being able to offer scholarships in the future. But basically we use Moodle also, just like Marcia was talking about, and this is a little snapshot of what a course looks like. So this is kind of the stuff that you might find at the very top of every course, and it has some welcome, a forum where people can introduce themselves, a little bit of orientation to what it's like to learn online, what Moodle is, how to use Moodle. And then in each week there will be readings, discussion forums, homework, assignments, and then the schedule for the webinars or the recordings. And if people miss webinars, we always record them so they can watch them later. Now our courses aren't standalone just in Moodle, though. We integrate a few other resources. So I mentioned that this is part of the Northeast Beginning Farmer Project. The online courses are a really big chunk of what we do. They're not the only thing we do, but this is the website for the Northeast Beginning Farmer Project. And its sister website is the Small Farms Program website. We kind of treat this website more or less like a textbook or a, sort of a companion text. Moodle is sort of like the classroom, and so is Adobe Connect, which we use for webinars, and this is more like a textbook. And within this website, if you click on this box here, it takes you to the New Farmer Hub, and that's really where the textbook is. So we have this green box shows you a list of tutorials which have worksheets embedded in them, videos, frequently asked questions, and anybody could go to our website and access this information. But the value that they get in being part of the online course is that they have a cohort of learners, and like Marcia was saying, it feels like you form a sense of community, even though the people often never meet each other in person. They form this sense of community. They get to hear from their fellow learners what their plans look like. They get to get feedback on their own plans, and they can directly ask their instructors questions. So it just is a lot more of a dynamic learning experience than just working your way through the website. But certainly anyone who is self-motivated could just work their way through this planning process. We also integrate videos that are on the website. We have an entire video gallery, and that video gallery is growing at a rate of a few clips a month at the moment. We started with some business-oriented business clips. We interviewed farmers all over the state talking about how they got started with their farm, and now we've expanded it and are doing more like how-to kinds of videos. The webinars I mentioned, we originally did not include in the course, but one instructor wanted to include one webinar, and then at the end of the course, the feedback they got was that that was their absolute favorite part of the course. People loved getting together in real time. They loved hearing from farmers. They loved learning about other resources and just having the opportunity to interact in real time. So their webinars are now a feature of all of our courses, and pretty much once per week we do. So from last fall through this past spring, we had 150 people go through courses, and the impacts vary, and we're also working on trying to do a better job of capturing numbers related to the impacts. But people reported things like increased confidence, new funding, better planning, securing farm mentors, and increased profitability. We try to make sure, and this was easier, initially we limited the courses to just New York participants, because our very first course development was funded by the New York Farm Viability Institute. Now we have some funding for so we do have grant funding often for development of new courses, but once a course is developed, we expect it to run without extra outside funding. And we have expanded, because we have so many courses now, in order to make it viable to charge money and run the courses just based on revenue. We allow people from all over the place to take the courses. So we've had people from Africa and Brazil and Canada and all over the place take them. And that has made it a little bit more challenging to try to connect people with their local resources after the course. So in the beginning, we felt like it was so important to make sure that people knew who their local extension person was, knew who there was on the ground after this 6-week course who could help them continue their learning. And that part of it has gotten a lot more challenging for us as we've grown. But we have some nice quotes from folks who have taken the course. That it's a reasonable price. Again, there's a ton of information online, but it's been really helpful to hear from other people in the class. And certainly, you can't expect a 6-week class to give you everything that you need to be able to start a farm, but this was a good starting point, said one person in our BF 101 course. And then this person kind of taking that romantic idea of, oh, I think maybe someday I want to be a farmer. And this course really helped them to drill down into some of the specifics of varieties, site design, Finger Lakes climate. And this person doesn't know what their path forward will be, but they have a better understanding of the time and expense involved, which is really important. We try to help people avoid train wrecks, too. So we count it as a success if somebody takes one of our courses and decides not to start a farm, too. And I'm going to turn it over to Lori now.
I'm Lori Bushway. I'm also in the garden-based learning program, and Marcia focuses on youth development, and I focus more on families and adult education. And I am spent all of my time in cooperative extension, and I realize we keep saying that, and I don't know if everybody knows what cooperative extension is, and so I'm just going to do a little primer on that. So I, as a 100% cooperative extension, there within Cornell University, we have county association offices in each county, or associated, not necessarily in each county, but each county has an office, a local office. They might be shared with 2 counties. And so there are county educators, as Erica mentioned, working with local growers, green industry, the general public in those county offices. And then those county educators connect with campus experts, research, and other programs to deliver research-based information throughout New York State. So that's a little background on Cornell Cooperative Extension. So one of our challenges with having county educators connect with campus experts and research that's going on campus is that it may require travel to campus, or those campus experts traveling to counties. And time for travel and funds for travel has been decreasing. So alternative we decided to try was to use webinars to actually connect with campus experts via these webinars. And so that was really what started us on this path of doing webinars, was just the practicality of using that to help county educators connect with campus folks, and vice versa. And so actually it's Cornell Cooperative Extension that maintains our Adobe Connect, and I just wanted to really show you sort of more of the logistics behind it, because it is frankly easy to do, in my opinion, because somebody else is taking care of the bulk of the back end. And we just go in here, we set up a meeting, and Jenny was actually just last Monday, and this 2 Mondays Nina will be on. So this was actually September 19th, last Monday. We set up a webinar. You just set up a time frame, and then this is actually what the screen looks like when you're in the webinar. And so what we do is faculty are actually sitting wherever they want to sit in front of their computer with a headset, and they upload their PowerPoint, and they're connecting. The way we set it up is we have them connect with individual counties, not individuals. So the counties will actually recruit people into their space like you are here, and we'll broadcast the webinar to a county who has a projector and is showing this image right here to a whole group of people. And one of the reasons why this works out really well for the counties is we are linking many of these webinars with DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, credits for pesticide certification. So they have to get these ongoing credits, and so one way to draw an audience in is to offer them these credits, continuing education credits, and they can sit there and hear the webinar and also earn DEC credits. And the local counties benefit in that they charge people to come to these webinars. We don't have anything to do with the funding, collecting funds from them. We just broadcast it to them, and they decide how they collect the funds from the individual counties. And so part of the success, I think, is we just have, the presentations are short. We usually have 2 presentations in the evening that are roughly an hour each, and then and that's sort of the end of it. But what happens after, in addition to the live presentation, which we can record in Adobe Connect, I can then take that recording in Adobe Connect, and I use this Camtasia software because I don't know anything else. I'm also not very tech savvy. But I use this Camtasia software, it's a screen capture software, to take the recording, and then I move the recording from this space onto Vimeo. So and Vimeo is just an online place where you can post videos and then people can view them again. So it's rather a crude process, but in addition to the live webinar, which they would get DEC credits for, other people can go and view the process after the fact, the webinar later on Vimeo. So it's an opportunity to capture people the first time, but also those who can't make it, either county educators or the general public can come and view it on Vimeo at a later point. So a couple different times. And very different from the 6-week, 8-week courses. This is kind of a small time frame to get a small shot of some information that is within the expertise within Cornell. And the other thing, I think that's oh, well, yeah, I just wanted to mention one other thing, which this is allowed, sort of led to. So once I got good at doing the webinars and then doing the screen capture, I started to realize anytime anybody does a presentation, I can just capture it on the screen and record it and then post it. And so for our Master Gardener Volunteer Conference this past year, we had a couple of the presentations, we were just doing screen captures while they were presenting to a live audience just like this. We had no other connection, and we were able to capture that presentation and then post that too for later viewing by other people who are interested in the topics.
So yes, good afternoon. My name is Ken Mudge, if any of you don't know me. Myself and Marguerite Wells, we're going to talk about 2 of the courses that we have developed over the years. We've actually, I think back in time, this all started about 1995, believe it or not, with a course called The How, When, and Why of Grafting. And then since then, that has evolved and new courses have come into play. What we want to talk about today then is plant propagation, one course developed by myself and Marguerite, and organic gardening, the other course developed by Marguerite and Charlie Mazza. These are courses that run for 8 weeks. They are entirely asynchronous, and the target audience is typically, we began all this thinking that we would be approaching serving amateur gardeners, and that's largely the case, but over the past several years we've been getting more and more students who are horticultural professionals, or who want to be, people who are about to get into the nursery industry or some other horticultural profession. We have, over the years, had students from all over the United States and some international students as well. So we cover, I mean, that's one of the things about distance learning. You're no longer restricted to a particular geographic location. In the old days, cooperative extension was a single county, but now we can go far beyond that. Excuse me. The plant propagation course, sorry, the plant propagation course is taught once per year, sort of that meets the demand out there, and organic gardening twice per year. These courses are limited to about 30 students, 30 to 40, and we've decided that that's about as many as we could really manage. Discussion board is a very important part of the course, and it's just difficult, if not impossible, to maintain a really interactive discussion if you get much beyond 30 or so. So we limit ourselves to those numbers. And it's also necessary, since Marguerite is such an important part of the course, she is actually the primary instructor for both courses, and I'm sort of the backup guy. But she does the work day to day, and she doesn't work for free. So it's necessary for these courses to bring in enough income to pay her. And that we succeed at that very nicely at these prices, and we find plenty of people who are willing to pay these prices. Now, in terms of the way we approach teaching these courses, just like the other speakers, we use the software Moodle. It's sort of like teaching for dummies. I mean, it works out very well. You don't have to be tech savvy, as it has been pointed out. There are really 3 parts of it. An online textbook, by that I simply mean text with pictures and links to other websites. Basic information provided that way. But also, the discussion board that I just mentioned a few minutes ago is an extremely important part of the course. And we've come up with ways, very sort of labor-intensive ways on the part of the main instructor, to keep students involved, to, as it was mentioned, to develop a sense of a community of learners. And we do this by, or perhaps less formal or less structured than some of the other approaches. But we have a gimmick, for example, called Question of the Day. And what we'll do is we'll throw up a picture that may have nothing to do with the assignment students just read this week. It might have something to do with an older assignment or even something coming up. And it's likely to be something that most students haven't run across. They'll look at this, and we ask them what's going on, and this turns out to be burnout on apple, which is an accumulation of adventitious roots. It's kind of a peculiar structure, but it has a great deal to do with the physiology of root formation and cuttings and other things. That's a lot of fun, these multicolored cactuses. So those are both propagation-related issues. We ask the students just to react to them. And particularly something like that they don't know, they'll try one answer or another, they'll discuss it, and finally after a couple of days maybe hone in on a decision, and then Marguerite will tell them whether they're right or wrong. And this is a very important part. The discussion succeeds because we're involved, that is mostly her, involved every day in that discussion. You don't just put out a topic and let it ride for a week. You have to be there constantly. You're answering questions from students, but you're also encouraging students to interact with each other. The shots on the bottom are from the organic gardening course, pictures of the day. And the third major feature of these courses, and I think which is ever so important to their success, is that hands-on learning is very, very important. I mean, after all, horticulture involves hands-on activities. So every one of our courses, we have features that allow students to learn by doing things. And take grafting, for example, which is one of the topics covered in the plant propagation course. You might look at me and say, how are you going to teach grafting by computer? But what we do is we will send them a lab kit. This is only part of it. But we have these various supplies, rooting hormone and so forth, and potting soil. And then what's not illustrated there is the hibiscus plant that we sell them. Not sell them. I mean, yeah, we sell it. We send them two hibiscus plants that we've raised in the greenhouse. And there's a video online that they can watch me some years ago grafting that hibiscus, and a detailed blow-by-blow summary of how it works, both in the text and the video of me doing it. And then they take those hibiscus plants to the kitchen table or wherever they're going to do their grafting, and they sit down and do it. And then immediately they start interacting as far as I cut my finger or whatever worked or didn't work. And it's the whole activity, not just the activity, but the discussion generated by it is, I think, very effective part of learning this course. The lower left, the graph there, is the result of a class experiment. We have them do, this is a seed germination experiment for the plant propagation course. Each student uses the seeds that we sent them to compare different scarification treatments, and they all send the results in, and we put it together as a graph, a composite of the whole class. And this is important, I think, because every time, you know, there are a few students, maybe a lot of students for whom the experiment did not work, but by compiling it as a group, they can see, oh yeah, that's what was supposed to happen, and go on from there. That soil represents some of Marguerite's hands-on activities for the organic gardening course. Okay, so Marguerite's going to take it over from here and give you a live demonstration of the organic gardening course.
You know, I always make sure that the very first week people introduce themselves, so, you know, Larry and Hollis and Sandy can all say hi, and this is where I'm from and this is what I do, and I try to get a little bit of personal detail out there that first week, just so that people can kind of chat and relate. Oh, I homeschool my kids too. Oh, I used to grow up, you know, I grew up in Michigan also. Where are you from? It's not that it takes over the course, it pretty much only happens in this one forum, but to kind of break the ice from a bunch of strangers, because as we've been all talking, how do you make a community out of disparate people who may not even all live in the U.S.? It's kind of nice. and it gives a way of relating later. And then the question of the day stuff. Sometimes I can start to scrounge towards the end of the course if I've used up all my usual demos and pictures. But I try to have, like, here's a link to a Weed Badger, which is a company that makes a weeding tool for, I wonder if it'll show. Hey, look at that. So I have this little video that they can link to. And I say, okay, what is this tool and why would you use it or why would you not use it? Uh-oh, now where am I in cyberspace? But that's the kind of thing I do. I link to articles that I find on the web that, organic producer found in violation of blah, blah, blah. I try to talk about, I mean, it is organic gardening, not farming. Oh dear, where on earth are we? But I do relate, I try to educate people what is organic anyway and why are we getting at, what's the difference between farming and gardening and what does it mean when something is called certified organic. Because, like I said, about a third of the people in the course are interested in maybe starting organic operations, or they have some sort of small thing, or they're interested in organic lawn care. They're already landscapers. Their customers are demanding that they grow or that they manage their lawns organically, and they have no idea how. So that's some of the market that we try to serve. What's wrong with these seedlings? How do you get more light? How do you know how much light is enough for seedlings? Some of it is very basic gardening information, but some of it's fairly arcane stuff, and we just try to draw people out with the conversation. So we have any? I'm kind of done showing the forums unless you guys have extra questions.
So
Sure.
maybe at this point we can have the light.
Given this trend of online degrees, what you thought the perception of was in the industry and academia for people coming through it?
I wonder if we might introduce Paul Treadwell. I'm just thinking, since you're asking a question that might be broader than horticulture, maybe we give you an opportunity to respond to that. If you don't want to, I'm sure we can.
There are multiple responses. It's a trend, but there are dangers that are inherent in any of this. And you start looking at one of the things we have to point out about all these courses, one of the fundamental things about all these courses is they do combine hands-on tangible interactions with the world. So if you start taking a professional degree program and bringing it online, and it's missing those elements, suddenly the amount of learning that's happening, the type of learning that's happening, is going to be radically different than what maybe should be happening to successfully complete that degree. So I personally, having worked in this field for a long time, I'm somewhat skeptical of the actual genuine utility of spending 4 years online and coming out successful as a fully rounded human being. This is my personal skepticism. There are, universities who make these for-profit institutions that are pushing online really hard, and in some instances it may be the right thing for the right person, but I would not in any way lobby for the complete shutdown of academic institutions and everybody jumping online.
Just to reinforce Paul's point, you might glance at this thing over here. It was in the Ithaca Times, and Paul and I don't necessarily agree with it. This fellow says that the most potent source of change will be distance learning. Its lower cost flexibility, ability to deliver the nation's best faculty talent almost anywhere, now challenge the traditional wisdom that you have to spend years living in a college trying to get a degree. Paul and I don't buy that.
Anybody have a different point of view in the room or on our panel?
Well, I've just noticed that in the past couple of years, I'd say I have gotten way more inquiries for whether we offer our courses for credit than I used to. Originally, it was only home gardeners, generally 65 and older. They were very unsure about even how to log into a website, and they were certainly not looking for degree programs. I've since gone looking because people are saying, hey, can you refer me somewhere else? And I've looked and said, anybody else out there? It doesn't seem to be.
But one of the dangers, and not to blow this discussion way large, one of the dangers is people are economically strapped, so they're looking for affordable alternatives to what would normally be in a university education. And we can't let distance learning delivery become the out that says, well, we're providing this, so we're providing education. We can't let the economics take over and push people online because it's not a full-fledged experience. It's not full scale being human in the world. So that's one of these things that really raises lots of red flags.
Well, and I would also say it depends on the degree. I mean, maybe computer programming can be done entirely online. But horticulture is one program I have not found anywhere offered entirely online.
Well, yeah, but just to jump back here, how many of you know computer programmers? You know how disassociated from reality they are. Do you really want to take them off the campus and stick them in front of the computer for the rest of it? So.
Well, there's no credentialing process for online. How would that differ from how colleges are currently credentialing?
Yeah, it's a dangerous trend.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah, so we've already talked about how this is linked to DEC credits, and we know that, or maybe you don't know that, pesticide management education program will do certification, recertification credits in a DEC-approved 30-credit-hour program. So it's not college class accredited, but are we linking this? And perhaps Eric, are your courses and Ken, your courses, are they linked to continuing education here, where certificates are given?
Our courses are not linked currently to the continuing education because it hasn't been, nobody has asked us about that. It hasn't been a driver really, but we are linked. I didn't mention that we're linked to the Farm Service Agency. So a lot of beginning farmers, like Farm Service Agency is a branch of the USDA, and they have loans that are really low interest that specifically target beginning farmers who meet certain criteria, and often they require those beginning farmers to have financial or production-oriented, what they call borrower training credit. And so they've given us a certification for all of our courses that we can provide that credit.
And all my students, the Office of Continuing Education provides them with a certificate.
They do, okay, so that...
And that's important to them, because they may use that in their institutions for, they may be doing this as an individual study and they may get academic credit, they may use it to go on. Some of them are educators and they use it for CEUs.
So, now do you know Ron Gardner and PMET?
Yes.
Okay, so they've developed a bunch of modules for recertification that are actually valid through the DEC. So we went through this whole process of negotiating with the DEC. How do you evaluate learning online? How do you know if people are actually reading the content that they're supposed to be reading and things like that? So there are ways to actually deliver certifications and recertifications online. It's a process, but that to me is a little bit different than a whole university degree online.
And I would also note that our courses have never done the continuing ed thing, although we've always thought that it was possible to go over to the Office of Continuing Ed and give an individual a credit if they wanted it. The only people who have ended up wanting anything are some teachers who have wanted to indicate to their district or their supervisor or whatever that they spent a certain amount of time doing stuff. And so I write them a letter saying, yes, Joe Smith spent 15 hours in my online course, because I have a log of that. And I can tell that it wasn't just that their computer was open to that page. I could tell that they were actually interacting and spending time in my course. You know, they spent 15 hours and these were the subjects we covered, and you know, I can certify that. And generally that's all I've needed, and it's only been a handful of people. However, we do give certificates of our own. They're just a certificate that I made in PowerPoint that says I certify that you took my course. And that seems to satisfy most people, and they are pretty anxious to get them. If I'm a little slow getting those out the door, where's my certificate? Did I not complete the course adequately?
We have the same experience.
Right.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'm sure the answer can be different for each person depending on the length of the course, but about how long does it take you to develop a course, a 6 or an 8 week course, and how much time do you imagine you spend each day supporting the forums and questions and homework and all that stuff?
I'll just say, it's gotten easier because what I often do is, it's weird to think that you could do this, but now I do a copy and paste. And I write right over the top of an old course, much as you would in a document, so they have the same appearance, the same flavor, but it's new content.
Yeah.
And that's taken this summer, for example. Somebody, you know, we've been working at about 20 hours a week. And then maintaining it, I'd say an average of a half an hour a day over the whole week. I mean, definitely an everyday sort of thing. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. The webinars, I know, are, even though you presented them as discrete units, they take quite a bit of time each other, don't they? You know, not really.
Come on, inflate yourself. Yeah, this is arduous and terrible.
No, I want to just
Yeah, and I would say it also depends on how many people and at what point in the course. Like week 1, they need a whole lot of hand holding and talking to, because everyone wants to talk, and it's like hours online. Yes, Susie, I do agree. And then at the end of the course, it's a lot quieter. Basically, there's a huge bell curve of how, at least in our course, there's always a participation drops off pretty steady.
And do you find that all of the participants do actually participate, or that there's a handful of them, like you would see in a classroom, where there's people who are more interested in participating than others?
Lurkers, they're all.
Yeah.
A lot of lurkers and a handful of talkers.
Yeah.
But different people learn in different ways.
Yeah.
And different people come to the courses with different expectations. So like, you know, we've sometimes beat ourselves up over like, why aren't people interacting more? And every course varies. Like you can run the same course 2 or 3 times, and in one course the group of people will be so chatty, and the next time you run it, it's a really quiet group. But you know, sometimes we'll have more attrition or less attrition, or more or less participation. We'll wonder, God, you know, what are we doing? Is there something wrong? And when we talk to those people, we'll find, oh no, it's just that I'm not going to be starting my farm for 3 years, so I just kind of wanted to take this course just to like see what was out there. And they really have this kind of casual approach to it. And then other people are writing their plan now, they have a need for information now, and they're the ones who are the more vocal and active participants.
I want to make sure, I have 2 closing questions. I know our time's running. I want to make sure that Geneva folks have had an opportunity to share any questions that they may have, and also just if the students see any opportunities to augment your education. Is there a module or something you could envision that we're not doing that might, so just making sure we're hitting everyone in our closing. Geneva, our students, any
question? Oh, we've got a question up here.
No one has mentioned the role of ECornell. Have any of the people in the group who spoke on the panel, have any of them approached ECornell in the past?
No. What is ECornell?
ECornell is a distance learning program for Cornell University.
Yes, that, but I just want to make sure.
Can I ask that your question be broadened to describe what video collaboration services is here at Cornell, and what Margaret Wells Group faculty assistance program they're offering Adobe Connect, they're offering WebEx.
Yeah.
And so, and we see that in talking to the panel here, that they've kind of crafted their own thing to go on. So it's hard to discern here what ECornell is and all the other possibilities, and how do we sense that down?
So I come from extension, so we have a specific goal and a specific set of needs. Cornell, in its diversity, has a lot of different initiatives going forward that may or may not communicate with each other. Now, ECornell, my understanding is a spin-off that's a for-profit venture to try to raise money and be self-sustaining and all that. And they have target markets that are substantially different than our audiences and our elected participants are.
So to clarify, all of us have used Moodle and Adobe Connect through Cornell Cooperative Extension. They maintain those resources for Cooperative Extension.
And Paul has been a point person for us, for all of us.
And for Moodle, we chose Moodle because Ken is one of the originators of this whole movement, and Ken was originally working in Blackboard, but there were issues in allowing external participants into the Cornell Blackboard system, so there was no good system set up to allow for our audience, our participants across New York State, to easily access courses that were extension related. So that's when we started looking at Moodle, and that's why we did our own install, our own support structure for that. The same thing with Adobe Connect. And we've been running Connect for 5 or 6 years now. When we first started looking at Connect, we engaged in conversations with CIT, and they said, well, we're thinking about it. But while they're thinking about it, we're losing audience, we're losing opportunities to connect with our people. So we felt it was important for us to take action on that, so we installed our own Connect system. So we in Extension have done some things that ensure that our access is continuously open and available to the citizens of the state, whereas some of the initiatives going on in Cornell are not focused on that rightfully, they're focused on the needs of students. So our needs diverge a bit, and it makes us hoe our own little path in some ways. Now, if CIT has been looking at either GoToMeeting or WebCT, one of those, and offering that as a service, when that comes around, we are more than happy to fold our webinar efforts into the system that they choose to support. But until they catch up with us, we can't let our opportunities pass us by while we're waiting for a larger institutional organization to move. So that explains some of the divergences. Now, I can't speak to all the different people on campus that are working in these different tools and technologies.
Could very well be they're doing the same thing Cooperative Extension did, trying to fend for themselves until something clicks.
It's confusing. I talked to Barbara Friedman earlier, late last week, and they were actually promoting Blackboard and saying there's a new version of Blackboard coming out that offers features that we seemingly all want.
Well, one of the things that Moodle has is it's freeware. Blackboard is expensive, and when Ken and I were running the grafting course out of it 10 years ago or whatever, it was incredibly clumsy to go between discussion boards. Blackboard was, yeah. Was, you know, where your content lived versus where your discussion boards were and where your assignments were. You just were sending people to all these links all over the place and logging into different websites, and it was, you know, it was a first attempt, but it was not as nearly as good as Moodle is, which is all in one place. Just log in and you're good to go.
And quite honestly, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say this. To me, as a person who is very much concerned with opening our access to the citizens of the state of New York, the actual tool that we use, whether it's Moodle or Blackboard, does not matter as much to me as the approach that we take in education, our pedagogical orientation towards inviting people in, building learning communities, things like that. So if suddenly CIT or Cornell says, well, Blackboard is now accessible by the citizens of the state of New York, I don't think we'd have any problems looking at what it's going to take to transfer these things, transition them over to that, and start teaching in that particular framework.
Well, see, that's the other thing, and I might say is we've all been using these things, and so we're comfortable in them. So if there are other people out there who want to explore new things, that would be exciting, and then to bring those to those of us who are kind of stuck in the, this does what we needed to do. But I don't think we're not, I don't see us venturing out. It's a tool for us, not a way of life.
Right.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.